Hi, first graders. Mrs. Keen back with you today. Last time we met, we talked about setting up a reading and writing life at home. Today, I want to remind you of all the good habits you already know that you can bring right into your home as you start that reading life. Before we get started, I've got some pictures here of some different avid readers, just like you guys. I want you to take a second to study the pictures and think about, maybe talk to someone who's near you about some of the things that you're noticing in the pictures that these boys and girls are doing that make them avid readers. Take a second to think. Well, friends, I don't know about you, but some of the things that you might have said was that you saw stacks and stacks of books, right? Our friend down here as well. Yesterday, when we talked about setting up your reading life, we talked about how avid readers read and read and read, and they always have a plan for what they're going to read and what the next book's going to be. I'm also noticing so many smiling faces, um, finger pointing to the words and to the pictures. These are really faces and body language of students who are engaged in their reading, of avid readers. I see friends finding comfortable spots where they can focus on their books, right? Again, pointing to the words and the pictures as they read, sharing it with a reading buddy, their excitement, sometimes reading with a friend, and sometimes reading alone. Okay, first graders, you guys know what a reader looks like, right? We have eyes for studying the pictures and the words. We have a mouth for reading with great fluency and expression, hands for taking good care of our books. We have a curious mind who's thinking about our reading, ears for listening to other people read and for thinking and sharing about our books, a heart for connecting with the stories, and of course, books. Lots and lots and lots of books. Another thing I want to remind you, friends, is that you are the boss of your own reading. In our last unit at school, we learned all about this and how now that you guys are almost to second grade, it's your job to be the boss, not our job as your teacher, but your job. And as you're reading along, the first thing you need to do as a boss of your own reading is stop when you come to the first sign of trouble. Something doesn't look right, sound right, or make sense. And then you need to try something. You have so many tools for word solving, right? And your tool belts. Try a strategy. If it doesn't work, are you going to give up? You better have said no, right? You're going to try something else to get the job done. You're going to keep trying until you figure it out. You'll know you've got it right once you've done a triple check and you've asked yourself, does the word that I say make sense? Does it sound right? And does it look right too? So let's go over our Readers Build Good Habits chart, which you guys have seen many, many times, right? We know whenever we're starting with a new book, we want to start by taking a sneak peek where we look at the front cover, we read the title, we think about what we already know about the topic or the characters, if it's a series book. We make some predictions about what might happen. You might even sneak at a few of the first pages to get an idea about how the book might go. Then, as you're reading along, you want to check your sneak peek. Is what you thought was going to happen what actually happened? Do you want to change your predictions now that you've gotten more information about the characters or the topic? And then we know when we're done with the book, we're not just going to toss it aside and go through that stack. Instead, we want to stop and hang with our books for a little bit, do something at the end. We've talked all year about some of the options you can do at the end. You could reread the book to smooth out your voices or to notice something more. You might go back to your favorite part and try to reread it with really great expression. Or you might retell what happened across your fingers, making sure that you really understand your reading as well. And again, we know, what do readers do? They read, read, read. And you keep track of that as well, maybe with a tally chart. Maybe you're keeping a reading log to share with your teacher at home. All great options. Another good habit that we know readers have is that they set goals. And we're going to talk about that in a couple slides here because I'm going to ask all of you to set a goal today as well. We know that that good readers reread books, right? Great books are meant to go back to many, many times. And you might reread to smooth out your voice, make it match the character's feelings, or you might reread to notice something more, to see more in your books. And we know that now that we're first graders, we no longer read word by word, right? Instead, we scoop up in phrases. Let's talk about reading stamina. We work all year on building our reading muscles so that we could read long and strong and stay focused in our books. Now that our schedules changed and we're doing some learning from home, you might need to slow down and rebuild that stamina, especially now that you're reading in a new environment, a new place, and in a new atmosphere, right? So remember, when a reader has good stamina, it looks like this friend over here, right? They can stay engaged in their book and read the whole time. Their eyes are in the book. They're reading quietly. They're getting started right away, and they're staying in their reading spot. It's not playing around, talking, pretend reading, or flipping through your pages, staring up at the ceiling, right? Or ripping books or not treating them with respect. Readers who have good stamina do some things, and avid readers do some of the same things. They read a lot, they read all kinds of books. They read fiction books and made up stories. They read nonfiction or teaching books. They read fairy tales, poetry, biography stories about people, and they really enjoy their reading so much. In fact, if you remember from our last lesson, sometimes it's hard to get them to stop because they're having so much fun with those books. And because they enjoy it so much, they can read for longer and longer periods of time. Readers who don't have great stamina, some of the things you'll notice about them is you can only read for short periods of time without getting distracted, tired. Um, they don't read very often, definitely not every day. And they often get distracted when they do finally sit down with a book. Let's be the type of readers who have great stamina. So, how can we build our stamina? Well, one thing is choose to be a good avid reader, choose engagement. Tell yourself, I'm going to read this book like it's super interesting. I'm going to keep my intention in the book the whole time. I'm going to picture it in my mind and have little conversations with myself. Um, be smart about your plan. When you stack your books up and you choose what you're going to read for the day, you might choose to warm up with a really high interest book, or you might reread a book that you're really comfortable with, kind of get that running start. Plan break reads. So if you have a really hard book, you might want to follow it up with a poem or one of your favorite books that you almost know by heart. As you're reading, keep your eyes and your mind in the book. If you notice that you're losing focus, stop, retell what you remember, and then jump back in, right? Tell yourself, no, I'm not going to think about something else right now. I'm going to keep my mind in the book, right? Wake your brain up by asking yourself questions about your book. Why'd the character do that? And what are the characters feeling right now? Maybe you're reading a teaching book, and when you learn something new, it makes you wonder something else. That happens to me a lot. So, some tips for staying engaged in your books and building that reading stamina. So, one of the things we talked about when we were reviewing our Readers Build Good Habits is that readers set goals. Now, friends, there are all different types of goals you can set, and only you know what is best for you. Your teacher can give you maybe some insight on the type of goal that maybe you want to be setting. But I'm going to talk about four different types of goals you can be setting. Because you're back at home now, and like I said, it's a new atmosphere, you might want to start with just a time goal and say, at school I was reading up to 20 minutes, but ever since I came home, it's kind of hard for me to stay focused that long. And you might do some type of charting like this over here and try to increase your time. And you'll say, by the end of next week, I want to read for 20 minutes and start slow. Time yourself, notice once you start getting distracted, mark it on your chart and try to beat that time the next day. Maybe your goal is going to be about the number of books or pages that you read. Maybe you're someone who's pretty good at reading for long periods of time, but you have a bad habit of only reading the same type of book. You always read fairy tales or funny books. Maybe your goal is going to be to read different types of books. Maybe you want to read more teaching books or autobiographies, books about people, fairy tales, comic books. Maybe you want to diversify the types of things that you read. Another type of goal you might set for yourself is a strategy goal. Maybe you're guilty of tossing a book to the side when you're done with it and not doing something at the end. So you'll set a goal for yourself to retell when you're done. Or maybe you do bloopers a lot where you just shout out any old word that starts with the right letter but doesn't really make sense. And you're going to push yourself to do a triple check when you word solve, asking yourself if it Makes sense, sounds right, and looks right. Okay, so here is what your teachers are going to be asking from you today. After you've watched this video, you're going to use this template to share with your teacher what your reading goal is going to be. Is it going to be a time goal, strategy goal, number of book goal, or types of books that you're going to read? Add your name using the text box up here. Draw us a picture or write what your goal is going to be, and then use the microphone to share what your goal is and some of the steps you might take to help you meet it. We can't wait to hear about your reading goals, first graders. Um, Bye for now. Happy reading.